All right, so that's the top 25. Now let's look at the first college football playoff rankings, which are very, very interesting, okay? Remember the top 4 in the AP top 25. Georgia was 1, Cincinnati was 2, Alabama was 3, and Oklahoma was 4. In the first playoff rankings that came out last night, Georgia is number 1, as was expected. Alabama is number 2. Michigan State is number 3. Oregon is number 4. Ohio State is 5. Cincinnati is number 6. Michigan is number 7. Oklahoma is 8. Remember, they were 4 in the Associated Press and undefeated. Wake Forest is number 9. And Notre Dame is number 10. All right, so let's just stop there. Some very, really, really interesting there that you have Cincinnati going from 2 to 6. Interesting story on that. After every Tuesday night when they reveal the new playoff rankings, the committee chairman, and I don't remember the gentleman's name right now, but he'll do a question and answer session with the guys on ESPN. Okay, when they talk to him about and when he was asked about Cincinnati, his comment was their victory over Notre Dame was impressive, but he said, who else have they played? And the coach of Cincinnati, Fickle, his response to that was, has that guy ever played football? So there's a little bit of consternation going on there. Now, the bright side of this for Cincinnati is their number 6 ranking is the highest any non-Power 5 team has ever been ranked in the playoff rankings. Yeah. But the flip side of it is they're 6, which tells you that if the committee feels like they haven't played anybody, they don't have anybody left to play. Right? So they're going to have help to get into the top 4, right? I mean, if you look at the top 4 right now, okay? Now, you can say Alabama, they have to hope that Georgia beats Alabama, okay? And Michigan State has to lose, or one of these things have to happen. Either Georgia has to beat Alabama, Michigan State has to lose, Oregon has to lose, or Ohio State has to lose, right? Because if Alabama beats Georgia, both of them are going to be in the playoff, all right? And then you've just got 2 spots left.
Well, who's to say that if Mississippi State loses, they don't keep them above Cincinnati?
You mean Michigan State?
What did I say? Michigan State.
You said Mississippi State.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If Michigan State, let's say Michigan State loses to Ohio State. Ohio State finished the season with just the 1 loss.
Correct.
You say they don't put both of them over Cincinnati?
It's very possible.
If his case they don't play anybody, which is an accurate case, I mean,
it's very possible. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think.
Or who's to say? Let's say that one of these teams like Oklahoma doesn't jump Cincinnati, or if Oklahoma wins the Big 12 championship, they don't jump Cincinnati.
That's right.
They'll be both undefeated. Or let's say that I find it hard to believe Notre Dame would jump them just because they beat Notre Dame.
Right, right. Notre Dame for Notre Dame. I mean, we'll discuss that later. But you're right. They wouldn't jump them. Let's take a look real quickly at these the remaining schedules. We've already done it for Cincinnati, but let's do it one more time. Cincinnati. Cincinnati will play Tulsa this Saturday. Then they'll play at South Florida. And really the only game left is the November 20th game versus SMU, which really has the only team that has any chance to beat them.
Right. And
then they're at East Carolina. So they really don't play anybody left.
That's the only game left that the team has a chance to beat them. That's their biggest game. But even if they win that doesn't prove anything to the committee. SMU is in Cincinnati's schedule, SMU is a good opponent that can beat them. In the big scheme of things, SMU is not anybody. Really.
Correct. You're right.
So that's not going to help Cincinnati at all.
No, and I think what the committee did last night was basically say, okay, Cincinnati, we're still not sold on you, okay? And for you to get in, there's going to have to be some other things happen, okay? Yeah. Because really, I could envision a scenario here where Alabama beats Georgia, okay? Michigan State, if you look at we did say that Michigan State, remember now, let me say this real quick. Michigan State was playing at home against Michigan. They were behind 30-14. Now, you got to give them credit. They came back and won. That could say a lot about Michigan, or it could say a lot about Michigan State. Now, Michigan State has to play at Purdue. Remember, Purdue beat Iowa, okay? So Purdue's not a pushover team. They can give you some fight. They played Maryland, which should be a win. But then they close at Ohio State and versus Penn State. So 2 games that are very losable, if you will, for Michigan State. So there's no guarantee that Michigan State's going to end up undefeated. Right. Let's look at Oregon's schedule. Oregon now will play at Washington. That should be a win. They play Washington State, should be a win. But then they close at Utah and against Oregon State. Oregon State being obviously one of their rivals. So very possible that Oregon could lose another game. Let's look at Ohio State's schedule. Ohio State will play at Nebraska this week. Should be a win. They play Purdue. Purdue's liable to beat them. They've done it before. Then they play Michigan State, and then they play Michigan. So very possible that they could lose one of those games. So looking at Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan State, it's very possible that Cincinnati could get back up there into number 4. It's just a matter of what will happen. Now, the key, though, is for Cincinnati is they're no worse than number 5 right now, right? Because Ohio State and Michigan, one of them is going to lose, all right?
Right.
The key is if Michigan State loses, will they drop them from 3 behind 6?
I think if you're Cincinnati, I think you want Ohio.
You want Ohio State to lose.
I would think you want to. Well, first of all, I think you want Ohio State to go ahead and beat Michigan because Michigan could jump Cincinnati if they end up with one loss.
Sure, they could.
Especially if they end up beating number 5 Ohio State.
Right.
So I think you'd want Ohio State to beat Michigan. You'd want you'd want Ohio State to also beat. What's he know?
No, you'd want Ohio State to lose to Michigan State, but beat Michigan.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Because that would knock out Ohio State and Michigan out of it.
Correct.
And then that puts Cincinnati at number 5.
Right.
Then you have the Alabama Georgia thing, and the only way they can one of those. But still, I think even if Georgia beats Alabama, they may keep Alabama above Cincinnati with 2 losses.
I think they well, I don't think they would. I think no team has ever made the playoffs with 2 losses.
Right, but this is Alabama. Remember, in their second loss will have come to the number 1 team in the nation.
I understand that. That's correct.
In an SEC championship game.
That's correct. And I think
in the team that we're talking about that they have to hold off here is not like a Michigan or Oklahoma. It's Cincinnati, who they already don't like the committee.
I understand that, but here's my feeling on this. I think you're exactly right. I think the committee has set this up for Alabama to be in the playoff. Okay, but here's the thing that I don't see happening. Let's say Alabama does lose to Georgia. Okay, and let's say Michigan State happens to go undefeated, and let's say Oregon wins out. Okay, now what do? Do you put Alabama ahead of a 2-loss Alabama ahead of an undefeated Cincinnati? Granted, Cincinnati. Well, yeah, you could, but can you imagine the outcry if that happens?
Granted, Cincinnati what?
No, granted that Cincinnati hasn't played a very tough schedule.
There would be outcry, but I think there's already outcry that they're number 6.
I agree.
I think it's going to be outcry either way. If you don't put a 2-loss Alabama ahead of Cincinnati, there's going to be some level of outcry that Alabama should be in. Then when Cincinnati gets pummeled by whoever, it's going to be even more outcry that Alabama should be in the game.
Right.
I mean, look, imagine if Alabama plays Georgia close and they lose the game.
Right.
I was not going to say Georgia blowing them out. That's probably going to happen if they lose. They'll probably be close.
Right.
And then they put Cincinnati in the last spot and they get killed by Georgia. Alabama fans are going to say, look,
I agree.
We just played them. Look how close we just played them. You're going to let Cincinnati in and they're going to get killed by them?
Well, this goes... maybe you and I could do a podcast during the early December when there's a lull in college football before the bowls to talk about some of the things we've discussed off air about ways to get the non-Power 5 teams into this. Is that, I think the committee's saying, look, Cincinnati, if you want to be viable, why don't you schedule more than a Notre Dame? Schedule a Georgia or an Alabama or somebody like that. But the flip side of that is, who wants to play them? You see what I mean? I mean, if you're at Alabama, do you really want to play Cincinnati? Now, granted, you should beat them, but let's say you slip up and lose to them. All right.
Well, if that's the case, then I want to hear Cincinnati come out and tell people, listen, we're trying to schedule better teams. I don't think that's the case. You haven't heard that.
I agree with you.
They would have no reason to not tell you that if that was the case. They would have every reason in the world to tell you that.
I agree with you.
I don't think they're currently searching out good teams to play. I agree that maybe some don't want to play them, but if that's the case, search them out. If no one wants to play, then come out to the meeting and say, hey, listen, no one wants to play us. Will somebody please play us?
Right.
But I don't think that's the case.
No, I agree with that.
Because they think that they'll be able to get by with an undefeated record, and now they're starting to figure out they can't.
I agree with that. I think Wake Forest at number 9.
That was weird.
More power to them. I hope they go undefeated for them. But they're at North Carolina, tough team. North Carolina State, who beat Clemson. At Clemson, and then at Boston College.
Even if they go undefeated, I don't see them getting in.
But they're not going to go undefeated. I mean, they're just there because of their 8-0 mark right now.
Well, I know that's why they put them ahead of Notre Dame. If you look at it, though, Notre Dame's lost to the number 6 team in the country.
Correct.
Wake Forest hasn't lost, but look at the teams they've beaten here. Remember off the teams they've beaten. Old Dominion.
Correct.
Norfolk State.
Right.
Florida State, who Notre Dame beat.
Right.
Virginia. Louisville. Syracuse. Army. Duke. I mean, come on.
Well, now here's going to be the interesting factor too. Let's look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's number 8 in this poll. Okay, they're at Baylor, host Iowa State, and at Oklahoma State. All three very winnable games. And then they'll play a Big 12 championship game. So let's say Oklahoma wins and goes undefeated, okay? What do you do? I mean, let's say Cincinnati goes undefeated. Let's say Oregon State or Ohio State ends up with one loss. Oregon ends up with one loss. Michigan State ends up with one loss.
I think by the fact that they have Oklahoma at 8 right now, it tells you that if they go undefeated, that they're probably not going to get in.
Right.
Unless
something
a lot of
else
things
happens.
blow up here.
Right.
Which, I mean, Oregon have to lose. Cincinnati have to lose to SMU. And some other thing. I don't know. Like,
a lot of things have to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things have to happen.
But I'm surprised they put them all the way to 8 because they're look. I don't think they're that good.
I agree.
But they are undefeated,
Right?
And they're in the Big 12. They're playing a Big 12 schedule. I mean,
right.
So what more do they want out of them? So I guess they're not looking. I guess they're looking at record. They're looking at strength of schedule. Probably strength of schedule before record, obviously.
Right.
And then record. And then I guess they're also just thinking about like how these teams look in the games they play, which Oklahoma hasn't looked that great. That must be what they're thinking because what else? If you're Oklahoma, like what else do you want us to do? We're playing a Big 12 schedule, Power 5. We're going undefeated.
Right.
I mean, do we really deserve to be behind a one-loss Michigan?
Well, let's look
Oregon.
at this. Let's look at this real quick. Let's go back to the AP Top 25. Now, we just got done talking about schedules, right? I'm going to read off to you the Southeastern Conference teams. Georgia, you count them up for me, ranked number 1. Alabama is number 3. Auburn is number 12. Texas A&M is number 13. Ole Miss is number 14. Kentucky is number 15. So that's 6 SEC teams in the top 25.
AP.
Okay? AP. 6 of the 14 teams. So that's almost half the conference is a ranked football team. So let's look at Oklahoma in the Big 12. All right. You got Oklahoma. You got Oklahoma State. You got Baylor. And that's it. So you got 3 of the Big 12 teams ranked. None of Cincinnati's teams, except maybe SMU, is ranked. My point being, there's a reason why Alabama is number 2, as you said, is that it's all about the strength of your conference, right?
Yeah, I'm not upset with Alabama number 2. I'm saying how come an undefeated Big 12 schedule is worse than a one-loss Big 10? Or a one-loss Pac-12. Pac-12 is worthless.
No question. No, I agree with that. I think the Pac-12 is... I mean, if you look at the Pac-12 right now, what do you got? You got Oregon, right?
Still looking at the AP?
I'm still looking at the AP. That's it. Oregon is the only team from that conference.
Going forward now, when you see on TV when it says number 5 versus number 10,
it'll be the playoffs.
Yeah,
so right.
AP,
but the reason I'm looking at the AP is because up till now, that's the only way you can gauge a schedule. Is how these teams are ranked right now in the AP. Because the college football ranking is more just where the committee sees them, okay? So I'm just trying to look at, at the ranking. Oregon is the only Pac-12 team in the top 25. So, I just, let's look at the Big Ten, though.
And then not only are they above Oklahoma, but they're 4 spots above them?
Right.
That's weird.
It is weird. And let's look at the Big Ten, right? They've got something to say. Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Penn State. So 5 of their teams, all right, are in the top 25.
I think there's 12 in the Big Ten.
I think there is,
right?
yeah. Okay. But my point being is I think right now the Southeastern Conference is still by far the best conference, but I think the Big Ten is a pretty competitive conference this year when you look at it. So I have no problem with Georgia and Alabama being up in the top 2. I have no problem with Michigan State being up there or Ohio State. No. I have a problem with Oregon being up there.
We're completely missing this too, because we talked about it so much. Cincinnati undefeated, they think is better than undefeated Oklahoma. We just got done saying Cincinnati didn't play anybody.
Right.
The committee guys said they didn't play anybody.
Right.
Oklahoma's playing a Power 5 schedule. How come they're below Cincinnati?
I agree with you.
Tell me that.
I don't know.
Why don't they swap them? Why isn't Oklahoma 6, Cincinnati's 8?
Well, why is Oregon at number 4? They lost to Stanford.
The only thing I can think of is because when they beat Ohio State, wasn't Ohio State?
They were number 2 or 3 at that time.
Still,
doesn't matter. I mean,
Oklahoma hasn't beaten anybody that high, I guess. Right?
No, they haven't. No, Oklahoma has not. That's true.
Still, I don't know. It's just
it's
weird.
It's very weird.
I would like to sit down with them and say, "Tell me exactly what you're all looking." I think they just take it by case basis. I don't think that's like this is what we do. Strength of schedule number 1, record number 2. I think they just kind of take it How does it go? Do you know? Are they in a room, round table discussing?
Yeah, they're in a round table discussion. That's exactly right. And I think
some of these people have nothing to do with football, right? Like
correct.
They're just like people.
Correct. That's right.
That's ridiculous.
That's right. I mean, it's
they're not even like.
There are football people on there, but not all of them. That's right. So
it's ridiculous.
And I mean, I guess my takeaway from this is I don't understand why Oregon is number 4. And I don't understand, like you said, why Oklahoma is ranked below Cincinnati. Okay, I have no problem with the other rankings. I mean, Wake Forest, I'm fine with that because they're going to lose. And Notre Dame, let's face it. I mean, they should be right where they're at. I mean, you know,
only thing. Okay,
no, I mean they have been very impressive this year.
The only thing about Notre Dame is you can maybe swap them with Wake Forest.
Maybe
I don't have a problem with it too much because Wake Forest is undefeated and their schedule isn't strong, but Notre Dame's isn't like that strong.
Right.
And they lost. So
right.
Whatever. But that's the best they could do is number 9.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But I mean, I think it's going to shake itself out. I think the first one is always the one that gives you a little bit of discussion. But I think it's going to shake out because I think you're going to see Michigan State, and Ohio State are all going to beat up on each other. I mean, there's just no way to get around that. I mean. And if one of those teams comes out of it unscathed, winning all the remaining games, I think they'll be in without a problem. I think Alabama, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Alabama, especially if they lose another game.
I think, assuming if they have 2 losses, assuming that second loss is the SEC championship and not before that, I think they're in. I think. I just don't think they won a playoff without Alabama.
No, I agree with that.
They're going to do everything they can do to have Alabama.
I agree with that.
If Alabama loses before the SEC championship game, even if they win the SEC championship game, then I think they're out.
They're out. Yeah.
Because look at the teams they're playing. It's just not going to look good to lose to. I clicked on the wrong team. It's not going to look good to lose to New Mexico State, LSU, Arkansas, maybe. Auburn's still the 13th. That's not look that good either.
Auburn's going to be the team that. Where's that game played at? Real quick, do you have that?
I lost it. It's at Auburn.
Okay, Auburn's been known to be a thorn in Alabama's side, and I think that you're right though. If they lose another regular season game, they're done. Right. Because they won't even get the SEC championship.
I didn't think of that, but that too.
Yeah. Because if you look at the SEC schedule right now, let's go to.
Would Auburn be in it then, or what?
Well, I'm going to go to that in just a minute here. Hold on. If we look at the SEC right now, Auburn would be in, right? Because they both have 1 loss in the conference. So if Auburn beats Alabama, they would play Georgia for the Southeastern Conference Championship. So you're right. If Alabama loses another game in the regular season, they're out. But if they get to the conference championship game, and assuming they lose a very close game to Georgia, it's very possible they could be in with 2 losses. Yes. I agree with that.